Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is that you're watching this video. We're back with another differences for the 7.5. Excuse me. Today we're going to talk about the hydraulic differences. In theory, this one should be a relatively short video. I know I've said that before, but given my history of making videos that should have been 10 minutes into 40, we'll see how this goes. Really, there's not a lot of differences, and you'll see as we go through here. And yes, it's another PowerPoint, and I apologize, but boy, it's the best way I can think of, and the best way that I have to bring you schematics and that kind of stuff, and to kind of show any of that differences. So we talked in the last video about air systems, and there was a few different air system differences, and again, that's going to be up here in a card, and then. I told you that this is not meant to be a full system deep dive, right? This is just going to be the differences of the 7.5 compared to the 7.6. Now, yes, I will reference back to the 7.6, but it's just mainly the differences between the two. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into it so I don't take a very long time to make this video. This is take two, actually. I had a video going, and I was almost done with it, and then I lost power, and it screwed everything. So let's hope this one goes a little bit better. All right, so first things first. This is the schematic. One is the 7.6, one's the 7.5. I want you to tell me which one is which. Okay, so now that you figured out which one is which, I'm going to tell you if you're correct or if you're not correct. The one on the left, so this one over here that's got all the additional stuff on the center, that's going to be the 7.6. The one that's on the right side is going to be the 7.5, so this one over here. Now, if you remember when we talk about the hydraulic systems in the 7.6, we ask, big question is always, what's the heavy system? Well, the heavy system is going to be the center. Why? Why is it the heavy system? That's always my follow-up question. If I'm ever doing oral prep for somebody, or if I'm teaching a class or something like that, and we're going over hydraulics, and it's like, okay, so which system's the heavy? The student usually thinks they get an easy pass. And you're like, oh, it's the center. It's like, well, why? Because now you actually have to memorize or remember why the center system's the heavy. Well, in the 7.6, the reason the center is the heavy is because we have basically three things that aren't shared with the other two systems, and that's going to be flaps, slats, and gear. Nosewheel steering can get thrown in there, but I lump that in the landing gear. And then some people will add the HDG in there, but the HDG is not on every aircraft. And if you want to know more about the HDG, check that. There'll be a little video there for you. Okay, so now the big question is, on the 7.5, what's the heavy system? And looking at this, we can tell the heavy system is the left. And why do we say that it's the left? Same reasons. Flaps, slats, gear, and HDG if it's available. Okay, so here we can see gear, main gear, nosewheel steering, flaps, and slats. That's the only things that aren't shared amongst the other systems. Now we come over to the 7.5, same thing. Gear, flaps and slats, HDG. It's the only thing not shared by an additional system. Now you could say, well, Brandon, there's a different color on there. It's shared by something. And you'd be right. It is technically shared by something. But if we look, we've got 4 colors on the 7.5 and we got 3 colors on the 7.6. The 3 colors on the 7.6 represent the left, center, and right systems. The 4 colors on the 7.5 represent not only the left, center, and right systems, but we add in something called a PTU, or power transfer unit. If you're unfamiliar with a PTU or what a PTU does, if we think about if you've ever mowed and you have a PTO that when you pull the thing, the blades start turning all of a sudden, you're transferring energy from one place to another to make something happen. It's similar to what we're doing with the PTU. So the PTU, power transfer unit, is going to take right system pressure in this case, and it's going to assist the left system. So it's going to add that additional pressure to be able to move flaps, slats, and gear, or help run the HDG if it's installed. And basically, you can think of the PTU if you want to relate them, if you want to relate the two systems, meaning the 7.5 and the 7.6, the 7.6 has an ADP. That is the helper. That's the one that picks up the additional slack for the flap slats and gear. The PTU does the same thing on the 7.5. The only difference is instead of getting its pressure from air and a pump driven off the air, it's getting it from a PTU, which is using an additional system, in this case the right system, to be able to provide that additional pressure to move your flap slats and gear. Because if you remember previously, we talked about this in the 7.6, if you don't have an ADP, it's going to take a long time for your flaps to move. It's going to take a long time for your gear to move because you got two little bitty electric pumps that are running all of those things. 7.5 is the same thing. If your PTU fails, now your flaps, slats, and gear are going to move much slower, and you're going to have issues, and you're going to have to follow a QRH probably to tell you how long shit's going to take, because it's just going to take additional time. And that's stuff that you have to be mindful of if you don't have it. And that's why having a good base of systems knowledge is always better than being the pilot that's in the cockpit saying, well, I don't need to know that. I just need to make sure I know what the lights mean. Okay, you can do that. You can be the guy that says, I don't have to troubleshoot anything, that I don't have to know what the system does. I just need to push buttons. And that's fine until something happens. And then now you become the guy that didn't know what to do, and you become the guy that tries to blame everybody else but himself or herself or themselves. And you don't want to be that person. I'm sorry, you just don't want to be that person. So I always think a good foundational understanding of the system is always much better than just knowing what switches mean. With that being said, if we take a look here, again, we can tell there's not a whole hell of a lot of difference when we're looking at the systems themselves. The big thing here is that all we've done is we've taken the heavy load items and moved them to the left side on the 7.5. There's some other little caveats we'll talk about it here in just a minute, but for the most part, that's the biggest thing. Now, I am going to tell you to go ahead and probably pause the video, take a screenshot, something like that. That way you can come back to this for reference, right? You can come back, you can say, okay, let me look at that again. Oh yeah, that makes sense. Now I understand why that does that or why this affects this. Some other things that you can see on here that are the exact same that maybe you would think would be a little bit different. The rat is going to be the same. It's going to come out for the same reasons, which is dual engine failure. It's going to do the same thing, which is basically provide flight controls for the center hydraulic system. And the only thing that's really different is the engine pairing. So, and what I mean by that is on GE and Pratt & Whitney engines, we're talking about 50% into is when that's that cutoff for an engine being failed. So anything below 50% into, it means the engine's failed. On Rolls-Royce engines, now we're talking about an N3, and it's somewhere in the 40s. I don't know the number off the top of my head because Rolls-Royce engines are far and few between when it comes to 7.5s. They're kind of an anomaly anymore. They're really expensive. Boy, they run like a mother, but they're expensive to work on, and they're hard to find parts for. At least that's my understanding anyway. So you may not see that so much. So I try not to memorize stuff or remember things that I'm not going to use too much when I can just look it up. All right. So again, you can see the differences here. There's not a ton, but let's talk about the actual panel now, right? Let's talk about the actual control panel, because the control panel does have some differences. Now, again, I'm going to give you a sec. Tell me which one you think is the 7.5 versus the 7.6. Okay, well, if you've seen my videos previously, you know that the one on the left side, the one with all the additional buttons, that is going to be the 7.6, and the one here on the right is going to be the 7.5. Now, if we look at these and we go, okay, what are my differences? Let's start from the top and just kind of work our way down the panel. So, starting up here, we got system pressure. System pressure lights are the same, means low system pressure. Quantity and reservoir. Quantity and reservoir mean the same thing. It means 50% quantity inside the reservoir. There is a slight caveat to that, though. On the 7.5, the reservoir lights can also come on for low head pressure. Okay? And if we remember, head pressure is something that our pneumatic system puts onto the reservoirs to keep the hydraulic system from foaming. Okay, and it works on both of them. Works on the 7.5 and the 7.6. The only difference is the 7.5 has an indication of whether or not you have enough head pressure on the reservoirs themselves. And again, if you want to remember why that's a bad thing, or why having no head pressure or anything or foaming in the hydraulics is a bad thing, let's think about what happens when you get air trapped in a line. When that air gets into your brake system and you're trying to brake with just air, it's not going to work. So you can hit the brakes all you want. It's not going to do anything. It's just going to pump until you can get the air out of it and the fluid in. And hopefully by that time you still have time to stop. Okay, so that's why that's a bad thing. Now we move down to the next ones. Notice that the 7.6 is listed as primary in demand, where the 7.5 is not listed that way. That's because the 7.5 does not have or differentiate between a primary and demand system, because there is no primary or demand system. So what does that mean? That means that whenever the switch is on the 7.5, the pump is supposed to run. Okay, it's not like down here on the 7.6, where if it's in the auto position, it could run, could not run, doesn't matter. It's all system dependent, right? Doesn't work that way on the 7.5. Those buttons are on, it runs. That pump is running, okay? So why is that a big deal, or why is that a difference? Because if we talk about the pressure lights, we talk about the pressure lights across the primaries for the 7.6s and the top switches on the 7.5s, exactly the same. The pressure lights come on for low pressure. Overheat lights come on for overheat, meaning that the temperature of the fluid is too high coming out of the pump. And then we get to the bottom switches. So down here on the 7.6, these are demands, meaning they only come on when they're demanded, when they need to come on, right? On the 7.5, notice there's no demand. They turn on when the switch is turned on. Okay, that's the biggest thing I want you to take out of this, is that they turn on when the switch is turned on. So, differences here. Overheat's going to be the same, regardless. It's a temperature issue. It's too hot coming out of the pump. Pressure lights change a little bit between the 7.5 and the 7.6. And what I mean by that, in the auto position, the demand pumps may or may not run. If they're not running, that pressure light stays extinguished because it is a normal condition for them not to run. That is why I will always say that this light is a pressure requested, not given. All right? Pressure requested, not given. Meaning, I've told the pump to run. I've told the pump to turn on. It didn't. I've got low pressure. Pressure light comes on. Over here, these pressure lights are no different than these and no different than these. I've turned the pump on, and the pump said, okay, I'm going to turn on, and it doesn't. Or it doesn't provide me enough pressure, and it's below that threshold, and the pressure light illuminates. That's our biggest thing here. The other biggest thing, because there's two of them, there's the fact there's no demand pumps, and the fact that there is no center ADP on the 7.5. There is no center helper. There's nothing there to help. Why did we have an ADP on the 7.6? It was the heavy system on the center. So we needed a helper. We needed something that could pick up the slack when we moved our flaps, moved our slats, right? And they had an anticipation switch. So when you move the handles, it kicked on and off it went. On the 7.5, the center system is weak now. The center system on the 7.5 basically turns into the left system on the 7.6. There ain't nothing on it. And the stuff that is on it is okay to lose for the most part. You can make an argument for the reserve brake, but that's a different video. So there's no need for an ADP on the center. And that's why the PTU exists, is because the PTU is going to help be that assist on the left hydraulic system using right system pressure. So the PTU essentially replaces the ADP on the 7.5. Essentially. They work a little bit differently, but they do essentially the same things. They help with the heavy load items. Okay? So now that we've talked about all that, this is kind of just a quick summary of the differences between the 7.5 and the 7.6. On the left side, we got the 7.6. The heavy system's the center. On the 7.5, the heavy system is the left. Reserve and quantity lights are going to be a little bit different. It means low quantity below 50% in the 7.6. It means low quantity or low head pressure on the 7.5. The 7.6 has an air-driven pump or an air demand pump versus a PTU does not have a PTU. The 7.5 has the PTU in lieu of the air demand pump. Now, one thing I didn't really talk about when I showed you the schematic, and here, I'll just go back to the schematic real quick. The center system on the 7.6 has a standpipe. That standpipe is there to protect fluid loss. So, standpipe is located right here. If I have a leak in something down here and I start to bleed out all my fluid, once that fluid goes below the standpipe, I'm protected, and now I can run at least my gear and alternate brakes, or nose wheel steering alternate brakes. As you know, so at least I've got that. But the 7.6 does not have a standpipe in the left or the right systems. Okay, so there's only a standpipe in the center. On the 7.5, there is a standpipe in every system, meaning that there is a protection for something depending on which system we're talking about. And that's where we're at with this. The standpipe in the left protects fluid for PTU use. The standpipe in the center is for the rat. And the standpipe in the right is going to be for your reserve brake. So there's a reason why there's a standpipe in each system, where the 7.6 doesn't have that. Now, I kind of mentioned it, but this kind of puts it out there. For the PTU, it's going to supply hydraulics for the nose wheel steering, flaps, slats, landing gear, and the HDG if it's available, meaning that it's on an ETOPS built aircraft. So the HDG may or may not be there. So the main things I want you to remember are going to be nose wheel steering, flaps, and slats, and gear. Okay? That's what the PTU is going to help provide pressure for, using right system pressure to assist the left system. Okay? All right, see there, that wasn't so bad. I'm at 17 and a half minutes. So if you could, I forgot that made noise. If you could, please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way you get notified whenever I put out new videos. We're on LinkedIn now. I say we, like there's a bunch of people working behind me. It's me, okay? So I'm on LinkedIn now with the GSI guy, business side of things. Go there, follow it. I'll post videos there too. I'll post questions, trivia, whatever is going to go up on there. YouTube, obviously, I want you to like, share, subscribe. Facebook, there's a Facebook group that you can get to, this GSI Guy LLC. You can go on there. There's gsi guy.com. You can go there. I got some funny t-shirts and stuff that's going to go up there. Any money that I make from this, anything that I make from this is getting rolled right back into me being able to make additional content and maybe flying. The wife said that if I make money from this and I continue to make money from it, that I can use the money to go flying. So if you want to see that kind of content, you want to see me fly, let's get me above the need for me to make some money off of YouTube. If not, there's also some other ways you can help me out that's in the description. You do it or don't. I don't care. I just like the fact that I can help people with systems knowledge and people that like to, for some reason, listen to me talk. I don't know. Outside of that, I really hope you guys have a good day, good night, good morning, whatever it is. And I'll see you on the next video. See ya.